Chris Bassitt returned to ace-like form on Tuesday night, giving the Mets 8 strong scoreless innings in what turned into a shutout victory over the Milwaukee Brewers. I'll talk about that game and Chris Bassitt's performance early on in the show today, but we also have to talk about the other two potential aces on this team who could be coming back, Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer. Pretty positive injury news on both of them. So I want to go through what we learned today and when we could see that dynamic duo finally share rotation together. And the positive thing is it's sooner than you might think.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on Twitter at FinkelsteinRyan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Now, Chris Bassitt was once again dominant, finally, after such a rough stretch, particularly on that West Coast trip. Bassett got back to pitching like the guy that we saw before Max Scherzer went down, the guy that you felt confident in being able to lead the rotation in his absence. And he just hasn't been able to do that. We talked about it a lot on his last start where he got knocked around a bit by at the time that was the Padres was his last time out. He did not pitch in the Angels series, didn't fare well in the Dodgers series, wasn't too bad, but still wasn't that good. And you look at what he's done this year, a stat I pointed out the last time we talked about Chris Bassitt, pitching against the Padres, Dodgers, and the Giants this year, those three NL West powerhouses, he has a 10.07 ERA. Against everybody else, it's a 1.75 ERA. So if you want to talk about, I don't know if it's superstition, but following trends, that's a trend that continues to bear out as he goes against an NL Central team and completely cars them up. But really, if you listen to what Chris Bassitt said after the game, the real reason for his success is he finally got on the same page with Tomas Nido. Coming into this start, if you look at the breakdown of ERA by catcher, with James McCann for the first 5 starts of the season for Chris Bassitt, he had a 2.61 ERA. With Patrick Mazeika for 2 starts, he actually has a 1.54 ERA, which is hilarious because you've seen those starts with Bassett Mazeika. He got very visibly frustrated with the signs he was getting and just being on a completely different page with him. It wasn't as noticeable when Nido was behind the plate, but you look at the numbers and you hear his comments after the game, and clearly there was a problem there. He had a 7.71 ERA in 5 starts with Tomas Nido prior to this one. Now, 8 scoreless innings is going to lower that ERA significantly, but you listen to his comments after the game and he took full ownership of it. He said it was on me. I should have been better about it, but I've really just been fighting with the catchers the last couple times out, really just not on the same page. He talked about how his pitch mix was completely different or has been completely different this year than it was in the past in Oakland. And Mark Canha was the one that came up to him as one of his longtime teammates, or really the longest time teammate, considering all the time they spent together in Oakland, and just told him, you're not pitching like yourself. You got to get back to who you were. And if you do look at the pitch mix, he said there's a drastic difference. And honestly, it's hard to catch it when looking at most of his offerings because he's got so many. And you're talking about the range between 10 and 20% for a given breaking ball of how much he throws at each given year. There's always some variance there. But the biggest indicator of some difference when it came to his pitch mix was the sinker. He's throwing his sinker less than 30% of the time for the first time in his career. He's never even really been close to 30%, more 35% mix of that sinker as his primary offering. And this year, heading into this start, it was about 27%. Now, tonight, he threw it 34% of the time, but I think it's more when he throws the sinker, how he uses it to get ahead when batters are able to square up the pitch and when they're surprised by it. If you look at his last start, he used that sinker 31% of the time, but he didn't get a single whiff on the pitch. Anytime a batter swung at it, they hit it. This start, his whiff percentage on the sinker was 29%. So a little bit of an uptick in usage and also an uptick in effectiveness. I really do think that Chris Bassitt is a bulldog type competitor, and you get into this mode where you're not happy with the pitches that are being called, and you kind of get into that I got to do it all myself, and that's not how you're going to get your best performance. And really, I think we saw that tonight with just how much more comfortable he looked out there with the pitches that Nito is putting down. And that's really what you want. You want the pitcher to be able to game plan and strategize with the catcher before the game begins. And then on the mound, you hope that they can just not overthink too much and the catcher's on the same wavelength with you, putting down the numbers you want, and then you can just execute your pitches. When instead, it has you second guessing everything. If you want to throw a sinker in this count to get ahead, but they're putting down a curveball for a first pitch, and you don't want to throw that, but then it has you in this other mode where now that decision to throw a sinker is all on you. So suddenly, there's so much more pressure on the pitcher to execute, because if you don't execute that pitch and you were wrong and the catcher was theoretically right, well, now you're just second guessing everything. You don't know if you're right, if the catcher's right, what's in between. So they spent a lot of time, and Bassett again, took the blame for not doing this earlier, and he says he should have done it 2 weeks ago. But he got to know Nito a lot in between starts. They had some days off where they were able to communicate a bunch. He got on the same page with them, and you see the results: 8 scoreless innings, just 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, 3 hits allowed. There was 5 runners that came on base in this game because there was 1 error, I believe, by Lindor on that backhand. Chris Bassitt had 3 inning-ending double plays in this game that eliminated all of that traffic. So he really was in complete command throughout. You look at what he did as far as throwing strikes: 77 strikes and 109 pitches. That's a strike rate of 71%. He lowered his ERA from 4.35 to 3.89. Drew Smith went out there. They pitched a scoreless ninth to complete the shutout. So just overall, a great performance by Chris Bassitt. And I also think that what we saw as well is a Brewers team that is really struggling. You look at the numbers this season, particularly the fact that they aren't chasing, they're not swinging. Basically they're not getting the bat off their shoulder, and they just look like a team that's kind of lost offensively. So you go into this next game against Corbin Burnes, and obviously the onus is on the Mets to try to find a way to score against him. But I wouldn't be surprised if David Peterson can go out and have a good game against that lineup that's struggling so much. That's a team that really just doesn't look like anybody was necessarily swinging a great bat. Christian Yelich, as Keith Hernandez pointed out, the bat speed isn't where it once was. He kind of looks like a shell of himself. So I'm looking at this series against the Brewers a little bit differently after this one. You have to credit Bassett a lot for his performance, but I do wonder how much of that was also aided by a really struggling Brewers lineup that maybe the Mets can take advantage of over the next couple of days and continue to win, because that's what's happening in their division. The Braves and the Phillies just seem to continue to win time and again. Actually, I think the Phillies might have blown a game against the Marlins tonight after coming back late, but the Braves won't stop. So the Mets have to continue to keep pace, and I think they can do that against this Brewers team. They did score 4 runs in this game, but I want to talk about that a little more in the next segment, how the Mets have continued to make it part of their identity to really make the first inning tough on the opposing starting pitcher, and how things can really snowball from there. But whether you're ready to pop the question or if you're celebrating a milestone moment, find jewelry as unique as her with the modern convenience of online shopping at BlueNile.com. There you can build the engagement ring of her dreams. They have simple tools that'll let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as the setting style. Blue Nile's bench jewelers will then handcraft her perfect engagement ring. Each ring is one of a kind. You can also celebrate some of life's other special moments with fine jewelry, as Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Make your moment sparkle with jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Mets listeners get $50 off purchases of $500 or more. This podcast exclusive does include engagement. All you have to do is use the code Locked On. Again, that's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever piece by going to BlueNile.com today. So one thing the Mets have been extremely effective at this season is making the starting pitcher work. Adrian Hauser in this game threw 37 pitches in the first inning, and it started with Brandon Nimmo. He has a 9 pitch at bat that ends with a double. Nimmo also, I should point out, made an incredible diving catch in center field. I just love the team defense you're seeing right now. Going into the year, I talked as the Mets signed Starling Marte about that alignment of having Marte's arm out in right field, keeping Nimmo where he's comfortable in center. Mark Canna's defense plays up in left field. And I think you've seen that really pay off for this Mets team. The three of them, it's the best defensive outfield the Mets have had in years. And when Nimmo makes a full extension dive like that, you're seeing this guy get better and better and better. And then you also have this double to lead off a rally in the first inning. At what point do we have to really just get past the health elephant in the room with Brandon Nimmo and just appreciate what he's done this year and what he's been doing throughout his career, and that he really is arguably a top 5 center fielder in baseball and deserves to get paid as such. And you have an owner that has the financial wherewithal to keep him around. Nimmo is just on a different level right now. And now I think we're seeing him get past that wrist injury a little bit and start to swing the bat a little bit better. And obviously, that double was a good indication of that. Starling Marte got an infield hit from there. And then Francisco Lindor advanced both runners on a ground ball in the infield as well that was softly hit. So that put 2 runners in scoring position for Pete Alonso. Now, on yesterday's show and also an article I wrote for justbaseball.com, I was talking about JD Davis and where he has his flaws offensively. And I was comparing him to Pete Alonso. And one of the things is you look at expected weighted on base average, xWOBA. Bottom line, it is a offensive statistic that measures the value of a hitter, the on base value. And all I really want from that stat right now is to tell you that going into this game today, JD Davis and Pete Alonso were a percentage point away from each other. For Alonso, it was a 402 xWOBA. For Davis, it was 401, which again, I believe I did mention on yesterday's show. But their value is completely different. And the expected metrics love JD so much because he's hitting the ball 95 plus miles per hour 65% of the time. And that's skewing some of the data. But not all 95-mile-per-hour piss missiles are created equal. They're a little bit different, okay? And with Pete Alonso, he's pulling the ball when he hits the ball hard. He's lifting and he's getting his home runs. In RBI situations, he shortens up and he is just absolutely feasting in these spots where you put a runner on third base with less than 2 outs, and Pete Alonso is going to get him in. And in this case, he gets a base hit that keeps the line moving as well on a pitch that was low and outside. It was, I don't know if it was quite in the other batter's box, but it certainly was not a strike. He was initially fooled on the pitch, not something you would generally want to swing at, but he was so on it that he was able to get a barrel on it, just reach out and flick it into left field. That brings in 1 run. From there, you got Jeff McNeil, who has the rare infield double, as Gary Cohen called it, a ball that he hit that went off of, I believe it was the pitcher's glove first, and kind of trickled into the outfield, and McNeil always hustling gets the second. That scores another run. Then Eduardo Escobar comes up. And as I've been doing all of this data analysis on JD Davis, one of the things I noticed is Eduardo Escobar has the best launch angle on this team. Best, obviously, is relative because, I mean, technically speaking, lifting doesn't always lead to home runs. You know, his launch angle of 20 degrees hasn't quite accumulated to the same amount of home run success as Pete Alonso at 19.2 degrees. But it is interesting just in that his swing is contradictory to what the Mets do, but it is a welcome contradiction because it gives you another home run threat in the lineup, and they just don't have a lot of them. And also in those spots, he's a good guy that can go up and lift the ball and get it into the outfield and drive in a third run. That's exactly what happened in this game. Pete Alonso then got another RBI later on in the 5th inning, his 59th of the season. When he got that RBI, it tied Jose Ramirez for the MLB lead. Not sure if Jose was playing after that and was able to once again regain that lead, as it seems like every time Pete draws it to a tie, you look at the next day and Ramirez once again has a 4 RBI lead on him. But that was a really good piece of hitting from Pete once again to shorten up and get an RBI single. And you look at Starling Marte, and he really set that run up because he's on first base. Was actually only on first because of a fielder's choice, but he utilizes his speed to create stuff for the Mets. You see Lindor hits a fly ball to left field that no one is considering in their right mind tagging up on. But but Marte tags up on Lindor's fly ball and makes it to second base, putting himself in scoring position. And then Pete Alonso cleans it up. So a great job by the team once again. You look at their success in the first inning this year, and they are tied right now with the Angels and the Rays for the fourth most first inning runs. But what is also interesting is you look at the breakdown of their batting average, their on base percentage, and their slugging percentage, and it coincides with their identity as a team. They're seventh best among teams in baseball with their 274 first inning average. Their on base percentage in the first inning is 355. That's sixth best. Their slugging percentage of 407 is 19th best. This is a Mets team that doesn't really hit for home runs and doubles. They're not an extra base hitting team. They hit their singles, they draw their walks, they do a great job at situational hitting, and this is really a credit to Eric Chavez because it's not like the Mets have gone away from analytics. Look at Pete Alonso, career high this year when it comes to his launch angle, launching more than ever before. You look at the approach that these guys have, the game plan that they have when they come into the box. This isn't just ignoring all the data. This isn't now going from being this team that tried to force feed analytics last year to a team that ignores them, but instead it is understanding that there is some margin in between what the numbers tell you and what is productive towards winning. And I think Eric Chavez has really blended that gap beautifully, where at times when Pete Alonso is up, of course, you want him to pull the baseball and lift. That's his job. That's what he gets paid for, to hit home runs. But if he's up with 2 runners in scoring position and the scouting report that the other team is using, their advanced analytics have 3 guys standing on the left side of the diamond, and you have a hole as big as the ocean right at second base with the first baseman, glued to the bag for whatever reason, and they just have this wide gap. Why tell him to hit it over the shift when he can simply stick his bat out, roll one right through that hole, and score 2 runs? And that's the difference this year. And that's also why the expected metrics at times don't add up, because those little hits that Pete has been using to rack up RBIs, they affect his advanced metrics negatively. That's going to take down his expected batting average because that ground ball that he hit where a second baseman is supposed to be standing has an expected batting average of 0.75. But when there's no one standing there, that batting average is 1,000 and 2-run score. So I get into it sometimes too, where I lean so much into the advanced stats that they can sway you and create opinions that might not be completely accurate based on eye tests and other things. And I think this team this year for the Mets is one that defies some of those preconceived norms that we're seeing in baseball right now, where you need to be a 3 true outcome team with the walks and the home runs, and obviously the strikeouts that come with it to be successful. This Mets lineup has gone away from that entirely, and I got to tell you, it's a much more exciting brand of baseball to watch. But the most exciting brand of baseball is the one that includes Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer being healthy. We got some updates on both of them today. They're both in New York, so I want to talk about that and what this team could look like very soon with their 2 highest paid and best players potentially returning to action. But first, our next partner has a product that I literally use every day, which is Athletic Greens, because for a while I was looking for a way to get more vitamins and nutrients into my diet, and Athletic Greens is the perfect answer because with one delicious scoop and a cold glass of water every morning, I absorb 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens that help start my day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. Athletic Greens has over 7,000 5-star reviews and is recommended by pro athletes. It costs you less than $3 a day, making it cheaper than your cold brew habit. It's the single best thing you can do for your body in under 60 seconds. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB network. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/MLB network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. BetOnline is your number one spot for all of your betting stats and sports info. Final latest sports developments, news, and odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup, the NHL Hockey Conference Finals, Major League Baseball, and of course, all the latest fighting news from MMA and UFC to boxing. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So Max Scherzer has a chance to return to the Mets sooner rather than later. He threw again today and has a live batting practice scheduled for Thursday as he tries to get back from that oblique strain that he suffered last month. The way that he described the injury is he said the first half of the battle is getting himself to 90% health, and that's where he's at right now. The final 50% is getting that last 10% of his strength back to be able to really fire and throw without having the injury in the back of his mind, because this is an injury that he can re-aggravate, and that is the last thing you want, considering where you're at in the season. You know, the timetable originally for this injury was 6 to 8 weeks. He's trending towards the 6 week mark of that, which is really impressive. That he might be able to get back this soon. When he got injured, I remember cautioning that we might not see Scherzer until the other side of the All-Star break, just because I figured they were going to take things a little bit slow. But at the same time, Max Scherzer knows his body better than anyone. He's working in conjunction with doctors and trainers and all of that. And he's going to be forcing the issue to get back to his team sooner rather than later. And right now, he is trending in that direction. You also have to remember, compared to deGrom, he doesn't have quite as much work to do as far as building up, because he did have whatever it was. It might have been 9 starts. I can't remember off the top of my head. But he did make, a fair share of the starts early in the season. So he did have a little bit of a level he already reached. And so it's not as much as deGrom, who's really building himself up from scratch here. The idea that he would only need one rehab start after that live batting practice is a little bit surprising to me. I think that's Scherzer talking, maybe more than the Mets. I could see the Mets potentially playing a little more cautious, but at the same time, if he goes out there for a live batting practice and throws, I don't know, 45 pitches and then goes into a rehab assignment and throws 60 and tells you that he's good to give you 75, wouldn't you rather have 75 pitches from Max Scherzer than 85 from David Peterson? I mean, the reality of the situation is, obviously, if he's ready to be, at full swing and his stuff is where he wants it to be, he feels comfortable on the mound, and he feels like he can attack hitters, you're going to want to get Max Scherzer back out there as soon as possible. So really good news on Scherzer. deGrom a little bit further away. Right now, he just threw a 30-pitch bullpen on Tuesday, has another one scheduled, I believe it's Friday, Friday this week, where he's going to do some up downs, which means he'll pitch a little bit, try to simulate what it's like to pitch in a game where he'll rest and then try to get back up. Maybe throw 15 pitches and then rest and throw another 15, maybe throw 45 altogether. And they're just going to keep on slowly progressing him. Once he gets through an up down bullpen session, maybe you have him face a little bit of live batters, and then you give him a little bit more in a sim game, and then you eventually get him on a rehab schedule and try to work him back into the mix. Everyone is hopeful. Everyone is saying positive things. He's in conjunction with the doctors. Everything is good. But at the same time, with Jacob deGrom, considering his last 18 months or so, it's tough to have complete confidence in his imminent return. But right now, it is trending towards, a pre-All-Star break return for deGrom, and for Scherzer might be back by the end of the month. Now, what this means for this Mets team is, obviously, you're looking at a roster that has been still winning pretty much 2 out of every 3 games, despite not having these guys. Now you bring back the 2 best pitchers in baseball when they're right, in the same rotation, that has Chris Bassitt, that has Carlos Carrasco, that has Taijuan Walker, that has Tyler McGill, that has David Peterson. I really think that there is a world here where, who knows, maybe Tyler McGill becomes one of the Mets' most trusted high leverage relievers, because his stuff could certainly play out of the bullpen. Maybe that's a direction that they end up going, because they have so much depth in that rotation. There's a lot of ways that the Mets starting pitching depth can continue to help them even when everyone's healthy, but it's the high ceiling depth that you're getting back that just takes you to a whole different level, and it just trickles down to the rest of your ball club. You have Max Scherzer out there at full strength, and he's giving you 7 scoreless innings. Obviously, that's a great confidence boost to not only win that game, but it's a confidence going into the next one. Particularly if Jacob deGrom was slated to pitch next. Suddenly your bullpen is fully rested to close out one game, and you got a guy going the following day that can get you deep into a ball game. I think recently, because the starters have struggled a little bit since Scherzer went down, there's been more of an onus on the bullpen to pick up the slack, and I think that could tip the scales back in the other direction when you get these guys, back into the fold here. And that's only going to make the bullpen more effective with or without someone like Tyler McGill being added to the mix. Overall, fantastic news on Scherzer and deGrom, particularly Scherzer, as you could be talking about next week. If everything breaks right, he has that game on Thursday, the live batting practice. Let's just say he goes into a rehab start, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, maybe Tuesday. Next Sunday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yeah, so probably not next week, but maybe the following week after that. The fact is, if you get him back in that next week, starting June 27th, before July, and you could potentially get maybe 3 starts out of him before the break, that's going to mean a lot to this team. Anyway, that's going to be all for the show today. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by Paul Francis Sullivan. Locked On MLB is where you want to go to stay up to date with everything going on in Major League Baseball. You can follow Locked On MLB wherever you get podcasts.